Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Melissa's home here. I am just not waking up, but getting up. I usually do take my time to wake up in the morning unless I'm going to work. Um, so I had called in sick again this morning. This is the third day of calling in sick. Just stomach flu, neck ache, energy very low, headache, just one thing after another. I think it's the flu. So it is so frustrating when you are doing the best you can and you still are having a hard time. Like, so I got paid yesterday and I'm thinking, that's it. That's all I got this week. But I had called in sick a couple weeks ago and my boss did not have hours for me for 1 week. So that really hurt me. That really hurt me because the time she had hours for me, I got sick. So I'm at the end of that. But I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you are doing the best you can and you're still not making a lot. So sometimes some of the jobs you take can hold you back too. So I have a second job starting this Sunday on Mother's Day, and they're like, "Do you really need that job? We want you over here." And I'm like, "Well, I made a commitment over here, and I'm trying to, stay with one job. And yeah, I do need the job." So we're working around that. So I will be having more money, but I want to make a point of this because my husband used to work really hard. I mean, there's no doubt that he went to work and he worked over 40 hours a week. And now he's got it easy because it's just him. But when he's handing me his paycheck every week to take care of the family, it can only go so far. So sometimes, you have to really learn, to appreciate what your husband did do for you. And I honestly did. I mean, I did appreciate it. Like, we were living on low income and we didn't care. Why would we care, right? We had lived in a trailer, we paid bills, and it wasn't until his parents got involved and they were like, why don't you, you're behind on your bill, and why don't you go to work? And I had three little ones under feet and couldn't be Ben's fault, not in front of me. It was just, oh, everyone talks good about Ben, and, he works hard, and no question about it. But the low income job was the issue. So, that is tough when you have a family. So what do? You got three little ones, and I was told you shouldn't have kids. That's what I was told. If you cannot afford kids in their eyes, and you have to really, what is affording kids, right? Because you're behind on a bill, does that mean you can't afford kids? No, there's other ways to afford kids, right? So I'm so glad I had my sons. So glad, and that was the goal. That was the focus. Was we are having kids. We had kids. They were all unplanned, which I loved. They were all a surprise. We did not plan any of them, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I stuck through with the marriage too, because after they were like, you shouldn't have any more kids, and really mean spirited, um, I ended up using resources. I mean, like said in my other channel, I have another channel here. I use Medicaid, I use WIC, and there's nothing wrong with that. I actually had an older woman tell me, Melissa, there's no shame in taking help. And that took me a while because I was brought up to be so self-sufficient. She goes, "Don't you pay taxes?" Yeah. Doesn't your husband work? Yep. So those funds are for you, because WIC and Medicaid, that's set up from the state. So don't be ashamed to take those. And that was hard for me because it's easy to be prideful and be like, oh, I'm going to do it all on my own, right? And I don't need, not that I even needed the WIC, but why wouldn't I take it, right? Because it's another source to save money when your kids need clothes or something. So I handled money really well. I mean, I used a lot of resources. There just wasn't a lot there. But I want to say something. So I watch a lot of videos on relationships. A lot. I watch Helena Hart. I watch Stephen Speaks. Um, Matt Schaefer. I took Facebook classes with him, a couple more people. So always am working, even when I was busy over here. When I got here, I still worked on relationships. And of course, it takes a lot of time to work on relationship, but a lot of my work in between my work, I was still working on, even though I was crazy busy, and I just said that in a video, I still worked on it, but it was at a different angle. It wasn't the deep relationship area with my husband because he wasn't talking to me. So even when your husband's not talking to you, and he used to give me the silent treatment a lot too, which is cruel, you can still do your part. And that's what I would do. So there's a lot of advice out there, and you need to be careful what advice you're taking. And so my channel is, I have 33 years of experience here of marriage. So I'm going to go with what I know and share from the videos I watch and tell you what I think of some of these videos too. So, one of the most important thing for men to do is to provide. And usually in the bedroom, that's really important that he's going to feel like he can perform. Okay. So, my husband, great in the bedroom, no issues there. We had a lot of fun, and he also needs to feel he can perform outside the bedroom too. So that's really important for a man to feel like he is providing. So even if your husband, and this is what I would try to do, and we have argued about it now because he has put me down saying, "Oh, you're lazy and da da da," and so not that I'm lazy, but I mean he could have, switched jobs. He could have made more money. He did get his ASEs, but he felt like at his job it just wasn't really making much of a dent in, his work. So they're different now too. I think they're harder. They're on a computer. But he just really felt like he just wanted to, he really had strong convictions that 40 hours a week plus 40 plus hours a week should be enough for the average person to work. And it really should. But there are times that things happen. There's jobs that don't pay a lot, like his. They used, some of the guys. One guy had a heart attack, being called all hours of the night. To do the trucking, and there's companies that just use people. I mean, they are so frugal that they will use their employees instead of investing in them. So when you have that kind of situation going on, and he feels like, you know what, I have kids too, I have sons, I'm going to spend time with them, we're going to go kayaking, we're going to wrestle, we're going to watch TV together, we're going to, talk and cook and clean, and I'm gonna just show him life. That's important for a dad. Um, you got to be able to work within those means. You've got to be able to say, in a respectful way, look, I went to the food pantry, not to put him down. This is what we got. This is what helps us, and to be thankful for it. And he was thankful. He was thankful for all the help I got. And so after the whole fiasco with his family, he had also cancer. So that was a huge part of this too, where I had to speak up and say, look, I'm going to put food on the table before I'm going to worry about the bills, because the bills always will be there, right? But what you want to do is you want to pull through all your financial issues, which we didn't even have really much debt, just like my student loan, and that's about it, right? That's it. So, so you want to pull through and stay focused. You want to be like, no, these are my convictions. We're going to spend time with God. We're going to build our family. We're going to church. We're spending time with family. It doesn't matter what the finances are. We're not going to compromise our lifestyle in order to pay bills, And so, I mean, getting behind on $110, whoopee, right? Come on, three kids, and you don't expect to get behind? Give me a break, right? So it's not like me working would have, sending kids to daycare or something would have helped. Although I did pick up stuff on the side. I did shovel, I did a newspaper route with my kids. Um, so it's not like I didn't do anything. And saving money was the biggest with homeschooling, saving so much money. So, you're like, no, I'm going to invest into my family. It doesn't matter what the outside is saying. It doesn't matter the pressure coming in. You're going to overcome it by rising up and saying, you're going to have to wait for your money. You're going to have to wait for your money, and be able to juggle some things. And I know some people are like, oh, that's stealing from Peter to pay Paul, but it's not. You can say, well, my landlord, that's more direct, so he needs to be paid. And the electric company who overcharges people in the first place, they can wait. They can wait for a payment plan. Same thing years later. After we moved from our trailer, I was there 23 years and we enjoyed a very slow, rich filled family life. That's what we chose to do and no regrets there. And then once we moved to the house, there was more of a three times the rent, but we enjoyed the house. We enjoyed it very much. And even though I wasn't totally attached to it, we enjoyed it. But now it was like, okay, you got to work more, and etc. But even then again, it's like, you know what, Mike, you just put our rent up by $300 all at once. I think you can wait for your money because you're being greedy. So there is times to say, this is a crazy time, COVID-19, the world has shut down. Um, and people are getting the help. And I remember when this started, COVID-19, and I was like, people are going to push back because people are going to be hurting. And that's exactly what happened. So the state had, funds set up for COVID-19 because people were getting sick left and right. And I did get sick, and I had never been so sick in my life. Me and the boys got sick. I had to literally stay in bed and shower. Just when I got up, I would shower about 4 or 5 times a day, and just to be able to move. I mean, it hit me hard, and even now, I'm someone who doesn't get sick often. So even now, me getting sick over here is like, wow, I don't usually get sick often. So, never really have had really much any health issues in my whole entire life. So I've been very fortunate with that. But my point is, you have to find a way to be positive even when you are struggling. You have to be like, okay, thank you so much for working. Thank you for your check, because my husband was so unselfish that he would just hand me over the check. And I would constantly say, okay, what do you need for gas? He's like, give me $20 for gas, give me, before he smoked. So when we were first married, he smoked, and that was cigarette money, which he quit, which I'm so glad because we saved. That was a huge part of savings. And he kind of had to quit too, I think, because he wasn't making enough and he had a family now. I need money for this. And we would talk about it. We would budget together and we'd be like, he'd be like, look, we need to fix the furnace, or I need to fix my car. There was a lot of car repairs at first when we were first married. I need some money for, my Firebird needs this, my Nova needs this, and even though it was cheap and stuff, he still would need, a little bit of money to fix this up, and he would save us a lot of money on vehicles. So he had his freedom. I mean, he went over to his parents all the time, and I would be home watching the kids either on the weekend or going with him. So he had plenty of freedom. It's not like I was a wife who he couldn't do what he wanted. Um Later on in life, I think there was more pressure with the home because he was also not only working, but, while I worked, watching, the guys, watching his sons, cooking, doing some cleaning, but hanging out, making fires on the fire pit, hanging out in the garage. But what you want to do is you want to, when your husband is doing the best he can, you want to come alongside and say, thank you. Thank you for what you did. You don't want to be like, oh, you don't make enough money, right? So that's just a tool to be like, okay, we're fighting and let's put each other down kind of thing. That's another thing you don't want to do. When sometimes you do have to fight. Some people say, oh, I never fight in my marriage. But when you're fighting because you care and because you love your husband, that's a whole nother thing, right? So I had someone comment on this, I think my other channel, and say, why do you care about your husband after what he did to you? I understand my husband. I understand him very well. I understand his thinking. I've been married 33 years, and he is a good guy. I did call him a loser because he did file for divorce, and I was ticked off, and I did call him a loser to let him look at the reality of what he's doing. He filed for divorce. It doesn't really hurt me. I am happy, in Christ. There's contentment, there's joy. But I do love my husband, and it's it's something I don't believe in. I just don't believe in divorce. And I talk about when I first went into marriage, I didn't understand, really marriage. I just, my grandparents had their marriage annulled. So it was just a piece of paper to them. And a lot of my family thought marriage is just a piece of paper. So I kind of thought the same thing and thought, well, if it doesn't work out, we'll just divorce. And I had a very low view of marriage until I, became a Christian and started to see, holy cow, you're one flesh and you are actually made for each other. God had a plan. When He made my husband, He also made me. And there's a completion in your marriage. I complete my husband completely. I mean, we are like on the same page, like 100% with most everything we believe. It's just you go through a hard time and you're like, okay, my husband's discouraged. I still love him, but he's discouraged. He's mad. He's vengeful. So he's lashing out at me because I had said, okay, go ahead and divorce. If you want to, threaten me with divorce from years ago, I kind of held on to that a bit. I was so ticked off that he came home and wanted to divorce because that was something that we were very happily married. And so I was really ticked off about that one. Um, so we've come a long ways in your marriage too. You grow. You should be at this point where I'm at, where you know each other so well. You're just like old, like an old pair of slippers. You know each other so well. You're best friends. There should be more intimacy. It should be even better at this point in your marriage. So sometimes men don't know how to deal with stuff. They don't. So they're just like, okay, I'm going to divorce, or they're going to take back their power and be, like the house was a little bit hard for my husband. I mean, I was handling all the finances because he wanted me to, and he had the pressure of this big house on him. Plus, he had, Mike coming down on him constantly for rent money. And I'm like, Mike's going to wait for his money. And my husband was like, give him something. So I did, and he still wasn't happy. And then he wanted us to buy his house with mold. And I'm like, we're not buying your house with mold. And so my husband did put me in charge of the finances. And I'm sorry, he didn't like some of the decisions I made, but I had to take care of things. I had to take care of a house. I had to take care of making sure that we had the COVID help because I had lost work and there was a lower income. I had to make sure we had a cushion. It was COVID time. It was a time that nobody knew what was going on. You didn't even know if you're getting your next paycheck, right? You didn't know. And I actually went and worked at a laundromat during COVID to make sure we had enough money because we didn't know. We didn't know if my husband would have work the next day. We didn't know if I would have work. We were out in the country, so it didn't really affect us a whole lot. The COVID really didn't, and I had homeschooled, so it didn't really affect us. But not knowing what was happening, and this was the government's fault. It wasn't people's fault. It was their fault. Um, you had to kind of push back and say, well, this is your darn fault that you did this to people. So we're going to take, some money from you because you just cut everybody's work. You just killed people basically too in the nursing homes. So, so you got to push back. There's just times you have to push back. And when you've got a landlord who has a bunch of real estate and is just greedy for gain. That's pretty much what it was. It wasn't like his wife had cancer and he had to sell because he told us she had cancer, and he was always like, "Oh, she has cancer. Oh, she has cancer," and he never really solved the issue. They had money. He was just a shyster, to be honest. That's what he was. And I knew it when we moved in. I knew it by his character when I first met him. And I said to my husband, I don't know that I really want to rent from him. And he's like, we'll just enjoy the home and not worry about him. And unfortunately, sometimes you can't do that. You just can't. And so I was going to make sure we were covered, period, before I worried about him. And I think that is what you have to do when the world shuts down. So I made sure we had plenty, and I was right back to work after I got sick. I was working at Dave and Buster's, and I had just started my first day at what was it, Bercelli's right next door. So I'm like, okay, I need to work 72 hours a week to make sure we have enough money. And then boom, I got sick. I just had finished training, like 3 weeks of training at Dave and Buster's. First day at Bercelli's, I'm, running pretty much the restaurant, and they're like, good job, first day. And I definitely had work, and then it was boom. So, with that happening, it's just like, it's just like, what can you do? You got to take care of your family. So, it's a good thing I did that too, because we had the help with the hotel after. We had a month and a half of help with the hotel, and we were able to talk things out, try to figure things out, look for housing, which I did. It was crazy. I was taking a real estate class. I was still homeschooling from hotel to hotel. And then one night we were in our car because the hotel didn't have room for us. That really affected one of my sons. He's like, I really hate this. We just slept over at Planet Fitness one night. He's like, I hate this. And so he really wanted to come out to Colorado. My minor, I'm like, geez, I'm really trying to stay in New Hampshire. I had another son come up from Alabama in the hotel room, like all of us in one hotel room squished. Um, and I'm like, this just is not working. There's only so much that I can do with the hotels. They would have busy weekends, and it's like that night they didn't have a room. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I'm trying to manage my family. So luckily I had that taken care of, but then I'm like, this is not sustainable. It's running out. So, we need to figure out something. And my husband did not want a couple houses. So we said, we're coming over to Colorado. My son, I had a job to do. That's all there is to it. I had a job to do, and that was to make sure that my son was not homeless who was a minor, right? I mean, I didn't have to worry about the one from Alabama or my other one who just turned 18, but because I am a mother and care about them, I am going to care. But my minor, I legally had to make sure, he had housing, and it's like, okay, we're going over here. And then my husband chose not to come over. So that's not on me at all. And trying to communicate with him and from here and be like, okay, what do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with that? And to be able to say, look, I'm still not finding housing from over here. What can you do about it? He didn't really do anything about it. So he did send me a good chunk of his check, and he kept a little bit for him. And what I was trying to do was gather his checks as fast as possible to have enough money to save up to get a place to go back to New Hampshire. And I needed more time. And unfortunately, he thought I was, you know, fooling around, just not caring. And that's not the case. He saw me swimming. So what? You have to, when you get my age as a woman, you have to take better care of yourself. So what? I'm swimming to try to take care of myself. Um, doesn't mean I didn't care. So I think he was discouraged, and he was in his truck, and he was, I offered him hotels. I don't need your help with a hotel. One time he did get a hotel with the money he sent me. I was like, how much money do you need? I wasn't being selfish. I'm like, do you need money for a hotel? No, I don't need a hotel. My truck is more comfortable than a hotel. How are you doing? Do you have enough food? Are you warm enough? Me trying to manage from here. So, things happen in life. You can't control everything. But why do I still love my husband or care? Someone said, and it's because things happen in life, and there's just you can see someone else's side to it. And also, when we see how much God loves us when we've acted rotten and rude, etc., we have as Christians that same kind of love toward other people. So we should be able to love others. I'm not suing his family. I'm not doing that. I said I could for their interference. Hopefully, they've learned a lesson there. Um, it's my husband's job mainly to decide who's going to interfere and who's not, which no one should interfere in your marriage. So that's pretty much what I got for now, guys. And work at your relationships, do your part. I work very hard at everything. And even if I haven't had enough time to do as much as I wanted with my husband because of all the craziness, I have still worked at stuff. And I've worked at my finances quite a bit too. So I'm at the point of putting, once I get the ball going, I don't even really have any bills. I don't have any debt really. Uh, Not really. I don't have really anything. So I'm just down to like what, $318, 380, 318 to move, 380 a month, 200 for storage, which I will be getting in my phone, which I just got one for $30 a month, and that's about it. The rest is all going towards savings. So I don't need my husband's paycheck. I don't need his money. I am going to be making more than him, so the alimony is not going to be an issue anymore. Um, I it's just not an issue, money. It's just, wanting relationship because you love someone. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys.